A couple days ago, I saw a video from one of my favorite YouTube channels, Veritasium, called, I don't remember the exact title, but our greatest delusion. And in a nutshell, it's basically about how the most common human delusion, or thing that we fool ourselves into thinking, is that human life lasts forever, and it doesn't. It very clearly doesn't. People die. Everybody dies. And you might believe something happens after that. I tend to disagree, but one life we know exists, this one, definitely ends at some point, and we just don't think about it. And it's understandable why. It's not a lot of fun or anything like that, but just, and then also that's the reason why we should value it. That's a pretty important piece of that video, is that we should value life because it's a limited resource. And it just kind of hit home for me. My dad might be undergoing some heart surgery, which is, dangerous. It's dangerous. It's fairly routine procedure. They do shitloads of them, but I guess there's, I don't know, I have to double check the stats, but I think it's something like a 20% mortality rate. So, when you're going into something like that, there's a very, very real chance that you're not going to wake up. And it just wakes you up to the truth of that video, the truth of that delusion. That we just ignore it. We just ignore the fact that we're mortal, and you don't think about how one day it's going to be over for you and for everybody that you know, and it's dark. So again, it makes sense that you wouldn't want to sit there and dwell on that kind of shit, but I don't know, I think it's good to keep in touch with it. I don't think you could be a productive person if you let that that thought dominate your life, but it's important. I think about, I'm just thinking out loud right now, so this is probably all going in the garbage can, but you just it makes you appreciate things. It's one of those things you just don't really give much thought to, but you kind of look back on your life in chapters, or at least I do. There's some overlap between them. My mom passed away better than 10 years ago, and there's my life when she was alive, and then there's a sharp dividing line, and then there's my life when she's not. And just as an example, there's my life before I had kids, and there's life after I had kids. Things like that. Shit just happens in your life, and regardless of if it's random or if it's your own responsibility, whatever, fact is, shit happens, and a lot of times you don't plan for it, and you don't really think about it, and next thing you know, you look around and you're just like, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on? It's crazy, and I should know this. Like I said, when my mom passed, that definitely came as a big surprise. She wasn't barely 40 years old. No one really expected that. It just happens. It's like life's just like, here you go, and you don't have any time to prepare for that or anything. So I'm kind of glad that I saw that Veritasium film. It definitely puts you in a weird place, and it gets you thinking about all kinds of deep shit, and you know, you might even get a little upset. But I think it's definitely, I think it's something that we should all probably do a little more often. It feels good to ignore the shit, but you know, for example, with my dad, I have just totally dismissed the whole idea that, you know, he's not going to be with me my whole life. And that's a difficult thought to really wrap your head around, you know. I mean, he's my father, so he's been there for my entire life thus far. I cannot, I've never experienced life without him, you know. And so it's kind of hard to visualize, but that shit's gonna happen. And you know, even if the heart stuff goes well, and you know, they give him a clean bill of health, and he comes out of the hospital, you know, doing a cartwheel, the fact is that, you know, he's like almost 30 years older than me. You know, I mean, it's all that is a delay. You know, it just buys some more time, and that's great. You know, I mean, when it comes to time, as far as I'm concerned, the more the merrier. You know, we got a lot of plans that we want to do. You know, things that we want to do with our lives. We want to, you know, move out west. We want to have, you know, nice things and enjoy ourselves, and you know, do all kinds of cool shit. And I just feel like, you know, oh, you know, I don't want him to be cheated out of that, you know. But the unfortunate truth is that the world doesn't give a shit about what's fair or your plans or what you want. It just is what it is, you know. I hope that everything goes well this week with him and stuff, so that you know, he can at least be a part of that for part of his life. And in the meantime, you know, I'm gonna try to be cool and shit, and I don't know. I don't know. As dark and disturbing as all that shit is, another one of the things I think that's good about it is, you know, when you're not even thinking about this stuff, it's really easy to, you know, to take people for granted. And that sounds, you know, everybody says that. It's like, that says that shit. It's probably fortune cookies that say that shit. But, you know, when you really actually feel it, like when it happens to you, suddenly that, you know, that meaningless, like, cliche saying suddenly means a lot, you know. And if you would have asked me a month ago, you know, like, hey, you know, if your dad was gone tomorrow, you know, like, what would you miss? You know, how would you feel about that or whatever? I know, but I would have a very difficult time articulating it on the spot, because I hadn't been thinking about it, you know. There was just no thought that's gone into it. Someone just asked you, you know, out of the clear blue sky, like, hey, what do you think about this? You would be difficult to say. I mean, obviously, I'm having a hard time just phrasing this whole concept. But just given a little bit of thought, being confronted with the situation, makes me consciously aware of of the things that I do appreciate and the things that I will miss. And that's a positive thing because it allows me the capacity to enjoy them and savor them that much more while I have them now. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, in a nutshell, is if you don't confront these things head on, then you just, you let these things pass you by. You don't really think too much about them. You're not able to really savor it. What the fuck am I coming over here for? Oh, I know what I'll do. Oh man, shit is just fucking. Okay, man. I think that's enough fucking philosophy from a jackass.